All right, you guys, we're going to talk about covalent bonding finally. All right, remember a couple of things from covalent bonds. Covalent bonds are between two nonmetals. Remember, covalent bonds have can melt. They have a low melting point, 100 degrees Celsius. They cannot conduct electricity. And they are usually not soluble. Okay, so most importantly, we are looking at two nonmetals, so to the right of the staircase. All right, we want to know or have these memorized. These are prefixes. Okay, a prefix is a piece of a word that comes or it's a piece of the word that's in front, and it has meaning. We have a couple of prefixes we want to remember. Mono, di, tri, tetra, penta, and I'm putting the vowels in parentheses for mono and tetra. Tetra needs it too, because when the nonmetal starts with a vowel, we don't usually put a vowel next to a vowel. So hexa, these are in numerical orders. Hepta, octa, nona, and deca. You guys have heard these before when we talk about polygons, right? So they're in numerical order. They each stand for, represent the amount of the nonmetal that I have in the bond. So again, memorize these prefixes. Okay, so let me show you an example, one of the most famous covalent bonds that we have. That is H2O. You know it as water, but H2O in its formal name is dihydrogen monooxygen, but we don't put the O, so it's monoxygen, but we put an I at the end of it, just like we did for a covalent bond, or for an ionic bond. Okay, and let's just kind of compare the two. So we have di, representing the subscript 2, and then hydrogen is your first non-metal. So this is your first non-metal. That's this guy here. And then next you have another subscript that's named. Now there's only one oxygen. Remember, if you don't see it there, if you don't see a subscript, you know it's a 1. So that's your mono meaning 1. And then the last word here, this is your non-metal portion of the second non-metal. Okay, so we have these are your subscripts. And then these other guys. These are your nonmetals. And then take note that we changed this last one to "-ide". All right, so let's try a couple examples. Okay, I'm going to start first with writing the name, and then we're going to turn it into the formula, and then we'll go the other way. So we're going to do di-sulfur tetroxide. Now, how do I know that this is a covalent bond? Well, if they have prefixes like mono and di and tri and tetra, then you know it's going to be a covalent bond. The other thing too that you can notice is that you have sulfur instead of a metal in the beginning. So sulfur, which is not a metal, it's a nonmetal, being listed first throws out the idea that this could be possibly an ionic bond because they're both nonmetals. All right, so our subscript di goes on the S for sulfur. Tetra means 4, right? So di is 2, tetra is 4, and then oxide comes from oxygen, O, and 4 goes here. So there's tetra, that's your 4. Here's your 2. That was the sulfur. And the oxide that's your oxygen. All right, now let's try it the other way, and let's try writing the name given the formula. So I give you HBr. Now when you have no prefix in front of the first, or when you have no subscript on the first nonmetal, remember it's a 1, right? But you don't see a 1. You do not have to write mono. Okay, we do not. This is hydrogen. We do not need to write the word mono unless it's the second nonmetal. So we write hydrogen, and then we have our next one is bromine. There's one of them. So you have to write the word mono, and then it's bromide, because we're going to change that ending to "-ide", and it's always like that. So there you have it, covalent. Remember, the subscripts become the prefixes, and the prefixes become the subscripts. They're both non-metal, so it's always going to be covalent when they're both non-metal.